So he has like the title of the video is random guy yells at me, then helps out. And it's totally a stage because this guy comes over. He's like, what are you doing, man? You've been mowing the lawn for like an hour. He's like, I'm trying to do this. He's like, I got a baby sleeping. And he's like, well, if you want it over faster, grab some equipment and help me. And then it shows him working for like the rest of the half of a day, helping him clean up the yard.
That's funny.
Clearly
I haven't seen that
not
one.
correct.
Mhm.
But it reminds me of when we were on HGTV, part of the producer's request was, we need some drama for this episode. So can you please act like you already installed this fireplace? Can you take the mantle off, pretend like it's not been installed ever, and argue about what kind of mantle you should have for like 2 or 3 minutes, just so we have some footage of drama occurring in this segment? How do we feel about like fake drama as a way to create a more compelling story? I would argue we don't have to get very fake in our industry.
That's what I was going to say. I think you can be selective and think to what a problem would be that we successfully can solve for somebody or have solved for somebody and highlight that. So I don't think you have to totally fake it. But I think you can be strategic. I think, yes, I think we gloss over things, and people aren't stupid. They know that building a home is difficult, and they've heard the horror stories. And so sometimes if we pretend like it's going to be a seamless, perfect process, like they see through that. So sometimes it doesn't hurt to just, be right up front. There are problems, but you can trust us to work through them, kind of thing.
I always, whenever I throw something out like that, I try to come back with some guiding rails to keep you from veering off the cliff
and blaming us.
I think it's okay to add, and this is maybe again, disagree with me if you want to, just write in at show, do you convert, or email me or DM me on the socials. I think it's okay to add negativity for drama, because again, that's what I'm saying. Like in the particular instance, let's say you were going to document one person's experience. I could totally see, you just get lucky and that experience goes perfectly. And you're like, we better have something kind of go wrong here that we can say, this is how we address issues. I think that's more okay than saying, hey, you know what? Let's pretend like we just found out you're having your third kid, and we'll like customize an extra closet as like a nursery ensuite thing. Because that's setting an expectation that you're not going to be able to deliver, unless that's your culture of you just do small things whenever you can to improve the life of your customer. But to do that just for the drama or the virality of it would be a negative, I think, for most people, because it's not what you do every day. Whereas vendors don't show up on time or for days on end, that's going to happen.
Yeah. I think it's a fun question to ask people who've built, like, what would you have done differently if you built again? Because there's always something you would do differently, and people can learn from that. Like if somebody's going through the design center and everybody says, I wish I had have done the thicker granite or whatever it is, or I wish I hadn't have paid so much for this.
We'll end with this, because you started a podcast at Ideal before you left there with your boss. And I remember my favorite episode by far, because you have each built, I think, multiple Ideal homes over the years, was like what like overrated or underrated, or what I would do or wouldn't do. I don't remember the exact context of the episode, but I'm not an Ideal homeowner. But there were things that transcend, like jetted tubs, overrated, that was compelling to me, even though I wasn't shopping for a house in Oklahoma City.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. Don't always be so afraid to play everything super safe. Be strategic about it, but don't be afraid to show, those different sides of it.
Have a purpose. All right. Well, welcome to episode 281. I'm Kevin Oakley, and with me today is Beth Russell and Julie Jarnagin.
Hello.
All right. Long episode today. I have a feeling we got a lot to talk about. Let's jump right in to the story time. Should we just have a, we're too meta these days. I feel like we should, like, we need new music. We need new everything. We should just start all over. Let's start from episode one.
Let's do it.
What do you got, Julie?
Well, you had told us about an online course Simon Sinek, I hope I'm saying his name right, did on presenting and speaking. And there was one thing specifically that stood out to me, and that was he was talking about the power of telling the story of one person as opposed to telling stories of a group of people, or like a society or community, but talking about one person and how it impacted them and how that's so much more powerful. And so I was thinking about, do we do this as marketers in building? We have a few things. We do testimonies, and that's testimonials, not testimonies, testimonials.
I
we
would like
might
to
do
testify.
we might do testimonies too. We do testimonials. A few people do some of this. There's some influencer marketing that's like the story of one person. I know Fisher did some of that. I think Abrazo Homes has done a good job of doing that with their employees, like featuring one employee. But I would be interested to see builders like kind of dive into that and try doing more, telling the story of one person and how you would do that. And not necessarily from like a testimonial point of view where you're just interviewing somebody and letting them tell their story, but how you can kind of shape that. So anyway, it was an interesting idea to me because there is a lot of power in telling, we've sold this many homes and this many families, and to give people a sense of security that other people are buying right now and those things. There's power in that too, but we don't think as much about the one individual story.
Yeah, and that's the individual story is where drama is. And we talk about this a lot, that builders are generally scared of any hint of drama, but that's what makes a compelling story, is that there's something to be overcome or fix. And, we've talked about this as well, that a lot of people just kind of check the box on telling those individual stories of like, I've got 10 testimonials. How much more do I need? Like, is anyone going to really watch all of them? Maybe not, but shouldn't we be doing and focusing more of our energy on creating that content if it is so powerful? And I don't know. I think we should, from what I'm looking at on most builder websites.
Yeah, and I think builders need to allow room for that to happen, because it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of energy. It takes a lot of resources from getting the right people to do it, from building the questions script, getting the right location to film them in. Like, there's so many layers that a lot of people don't recognize when it comes to creating that content, that builders at all, top to bottom, need to provide the room and make it a priority.
Yeah, it's not easy, but that also means that it's going to help you stand out because your competitors aren't going to be able to replicate it.
Yeah. And also, part of one of the reasons that it's not easy is because you have to get the willing participant who's going to be good at communicating. Mm-hmm. But I have seen from a small builder here in Columbus called Bell Point, they've done a good job of utilizing their staff and showing really great B-roll of the home, either under construction, and talking about why. So there's the individual story struggle of what you overcame, but it's still interesting to hear the individual story, which again Fisher has done in the past, of why does this home floor plan exist? What problem is it trying to solve? Versus we have all these different floor plans for everyone. Let's talk about them one at a time. But if you're a custom builder or a semi-custom builder, explaining on the other person's behalf without using them actually on camera is still a good strategy. I mean, that's what most of HGTV is. It's, they do just enough of the couple awkwardly standing and or fighting with each other. But most of the shows are about the experts continuing that individual story on their behalf.
Absolutely. You can help them tell that story. You don't have to just rely on them in full out testimonial style. So it's true.
Yep.
Yeah. And oftentimes too, it only takes one good story. Like start there. Start with one good story.
Mm-hmm.
Better than nothing.
All right, Beth, what do you got?
Well, little update. If people heard my last time on the podcast for building a house.
Give a quick background of what's going on.
My husband's in the military. We move a lot. We buy a lot of houses. This will be our third in 8 years because we're crazy. This one we are building from the ground up. We didn't choose the floor plan or a lot, but we got in early enough where I am, we'll say, blessed with the ability to choose everything from top to bottom. So it's been quite stressful, but also fun because I'm getting people involved where, you know, my husband jokes, like when I'm mulling over a decision, whether it's the white paint debacle or whatever, he's like, well, go ask your experts, because I'll put a little poll on Instagram and everyone will vote on it. And like, I'll get a bunch of DMs, and like, usually it's, you know, friends within the industry flooding me with their advice and their expertise, which is actually incredibly helpful. You would think it would be overwhelming, but it's actually not. It's really enjoyable and fun. It's my favorite part of it, which is why I continue to do it. But we got a phone call last week that it was like, hey, why don't you have all of your selections in? And I was like, I was waiting to know like when frame stage was going to be done so that I could, you know, get the measurements to decide everything. Oh, no, we need it now. Yeah. So that's, yeah, I'm
the
okay.
most important thing, the most important thing that you experience every time you go through this process as a customer is developing empathy again. I swear it's like calluses on your fingertips playing guitar or whatever analogy you want to go to. If you sense yourself or your team or your company at all talking about how crazy your customers are, it means you're lacking empathy and understanding.
Yep.
You know, like,
you're too far disconnected from them, and you need to find a way to connect with them again. I just had this conversation with a young marketer about like a term, what a word meant to people, and the higher management thought it meant one thing, but her view was that the customer was associating it with something else. And I'm like, well, find a way to tap into that, you know, survey them, find it out what it is that this means to them, because it might not be what you think it is.
Yeah. Right. Well, the lack of empathy comes because you're in a boardroom or an office too much looking at numbers, and you're over indexing on what you think happens most of the time. And then you get out into the real world, and if you've been in marketing, you've tried to do any kind of change or improvement, you learn this real quick, where you create this perfect scenario, then you go out and inspect what should be happening, and nothing like that is happening. And so, yeah, I think it's just good. In this case, this builder is probably thinking to themselves, I don't understand. Why does no one have their selections ready to go? And you've done this a few times. You've been in the industry. You're like, no one told me clearly what needs to happen and when. And made sure that the subs that I'm supposed to be interacting with to make these micro decisions are even being responsible or making themselves available.
Or the right subs, because apparently one of my vendors completely changed. And so I need to now initiate a whole new conversation with the new vendor.
That was one of my, and this is your story, not mine, but one of my wife's biggest frustrations was she's like a get it done person. And so our builder said, you know, well, you have this period of time until your house starts because we're going to give you time to make all your selections. She wanted to make sure we were in and had grass growing so that the dog wouldn't bring in mud. That was like her biggest. It's irrational on the type of build we're doing that's the most important thing to her, but it was. And so I think it was like 90 days to make all the selections. Well, she was like, no, I think she got it done in like 2.5 weeks. But then the house still sat. But then the house still sat. Like the construction didn't begin because, and in fact, it ended up going 30 to 60 days beyond the time frame they said. And she's like, well, then no one communicated that, one, it could go longer at all just because, and two, that there wasn't a reason for me to put all that energy and stress into getting it done quickly, because I thought I was getting myself more time to make sure I would move in.
Yep.
And by the way, yes, every step of the way, I was whispering in her ear, honey, it's not happening the way they're saying it's going to happen. Like I was even trying to set expectations of like, no, we're moving in 5 months later than they say, like if we're lucky.
So I'm with Melanie in the denial phase of like, this is going to happen when I need it to happen.
Yeah, I saw Sean Van Dyke, who again, you should follow him on Instagram. It's good times, but he's building his house himself because his first builder did such a good job or poor job. He had to sue them. Big, long story. You can go ask him about it. But he and his wife are project managing a lot of it, it appears. And she's in the background of the video and he goes, yeah, the concrete was supposed to come today. They called and canceled. And they said they're going to be here tomorrow, which means what, honey? And she's like, sometime in the next 2 weeks. He's like, exactly. Tomorrow means sometime in the next 2 weeks. Right? We haven't reset that. So you have to make all these selections, or go back to what your
I just have to make decisions, which I can do, but sometimes when you're inundated with too many options, it makes the decisions that much harder. And one of the things that I've been talking a lot about is like what white paint do I choose? And so much, and people who know or have chosen white paint know how much of a factor lighting is. And I don't know what the lighting is like here. I don't live there. I haven't walked the house yet. So I'm just like flying off I don't know. It'll be interesting. I have to just make the decision and be okay with it.
I think we could do our own webinar on making good lighting decisions. Cause I remember when I first moved in, I was like, what's your favorite part of your house? I'm like, it's the lighting. It is the fact that there is, kind of like restaurant style lighting or hotel style lighting that changes automatically based upon the lighting outside. Right. When evening comes, there's, there's a coziness that the right lighting brings, or a feeling of home that
Sounds like a good builder blog post, builder education.
It should be.
I know.
Exactly. And here I have been supposed to order new shutters because they went to paint ours and there were mushrooms growing out the top of them apparently for like a week. And I have about 5 choices and I still haven't made a decision. So I'm no help to you.
Do you know what I did with the shutters, Julie? I was like, take them off. Just take them off.
Man, I just need 2 sets of shutters. That's all I need to do is order them. And I just can't bring myself to do it. So silly.
I hear you. Beth, it looked like there was a second thing you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So
data?
An interesting thing happened this week, which was a good reminder for me and for, I think for everyone, is the importance of owning your own data but not just owning it, but understanding it and knowing how to analyze it and how it can literally save your company thousands of dollars each year just by doing that. So we have a builder that we're working with they're severing ties with their other vendor that runs their SEO, and they received their last.
For those of you not watching the video, Beth just used her fingers to say SEO, which is part of the story.
Yes, it is an essential part of the story, I feel like. So she sent me like their last response in terms of their analytics that they provided on SEO. And I just found it to be quite interesting. And now it reminded me of what it's like to be that marketer that has things coming in all different directions and isn't sure what to believe and isn't steady in their knowledge on certain subjects. So if you start anywhere, this is where you start. And it's because they were charging probably like $2,000 to $2,500 a month for their SEO work that they were providing. And they sent in this last analytic report and they're like, look at all of this organic improvements that we've made, blah, blah, blah. And they've listed out all of these stats and all of these beautiful numbers. But if you looked at the data, which you have now that they own and they have access to, all of the numbers they were reporting were nothing correlated to organic search or the SEO work that they were providing. It was all what this marketer just implemented in targeted search ads, and it completely flipped everything on its head. And they took credit for it.
Yeah. And so I loved it because Beth sent it over to me and she was like, this is kind of interesting because this company is trying to take credit for all the stuff that the marketer just did now that she has control. And I think I used the sheep emoji to respond in Slack. And then her answer was, but the next email was like her firing that vendor. So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's like karma, I guess, marketing karma. I don't believe in karma, but maybe there is such a thing as marketing karma. I don't know.
Well, there's, like, how awesome is it that she just saved her company at minimum $24,000 over the course of the year? Like, $24,000 raise. I think that would be awesome.
The main takeaway for people is when people say the word SEO, you must clarify both with them and yourself. What are we talking about? Because most people who are talking about SEO, they just mean website activity and traffic broadly.
Yep.
they don't mean real SEO work.
Yeah. And that's something that they never got, was a defined scope of work from them. And then what they did was disguise the work that this marketer had done and implemented as SEM. And they marked that on their report.
Yep. There was a company out of Canada who they've changed their names like 2 or 3 times. So I don't even know what to call them anymore. But they're still around in the home building business. They do work with builders, but like 4 or 5 years ago, they were working with a builder, and their strategy was that they were the SEO company doing inbound marketing, a la HubSpot. And they would write this blog content, and then they would spend all of the builders' ad dollars that they were, let's say they charged $3,000 a month for this amazing SEO work.
Oh gosh, I know where this is going.
They basically $500 was going to write a couple different articles, and then the rest of the money was running ads on social media, sending traffic to those articles, and talking about, look at all the traffic these articles are generating for you. Because
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. My story time, my quick one is that I have a new favorite thing for analogies, which is recipes. And Mike and I do a video every month to all of our builders. We call the Pulse Update on the market. And we talked about one of the reasons why I think everyone's so excited about AI is because they're like the newscaster on your favorite morning show who's making a recipe, in air quotes, with Emeril Lagasse. And Emeril's like, yeah, so put in some of this and put in some of that. And they're just dumping ingredients that are pre-measured, sifted, sorted, chopped into a bowl. And you feel like you're making something. And you get this euphoric kind of reaction because look what I made. It's got, also known as the IKEA effect of people overvalue something that they put their own time into. That's why our kids show us pictures and they think it's awesome and they want you to think it's awesome because look, I did it. And that's why some people just are fascinated and obsessed with using AI. Is there's a particular skill set, could be many different things, where they're like, oh, this makes me feel like I am now a professional chef, but I didn't do any of the selecting of which ingredients or measurements or any of it. I'm just letting this tool let me dump in some stuff. And maybe I choose not to put in the nutmeg because I don't like nutmeg. And now I made my own personal version of an Emeril Lagasse recipe. And I think that's why there's some over indexing. In fact, I was going to save it for my favorite, but oh shoot, did I lose it? No, I have it here from Twitter. There's a gentleman named Chamath Palihapitiya. I've referenced him before. And he wrote this on Twitter. He said, you may want to take note of the fact that the blind optimism around AI isn't coming from Silicon Valley this time. Instead, all of the cheerleading is coming from hedge funds and family offices who are investing in AI. And I would add an asterisk on that, and companies selling AI services or the potential of how AI is going to revolutionize it. Basically, what he's saying is, if you listen again to anything that Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, or people who really know what AI is capable of, they're like, yeah, this is cool, but also this has been around for a long time. I'm not sure what everyone here is losing their mind about. And so Silicon Valley is like, yeah, it's going to be cool, but it's not like earth changing right now. And everyone else is like, this is earth changing. And it's this weird kind of irrational excitement, but for a reason. And that's like long term, it's going to change everything. Short term, it's probably going to take longer than we think. In fact, I saw, and I posted on LinkedIn, there's a 2004 article where IBM said they were going to replace 7,000 workers with AI back in 2004. Shocker, it never happened. But the CEO is quoted as, we put in a hiring freeze. We're not going to hire anyone because we're going to replace all these workers with AI. Newsflash, IBM no longer leads in any category of anything as an organization. So I just think back to cooking is my new favorite analogy. The other half of that is, I was thinking that you could give 10 houses in a row on the same street in the same neighborhood bread, peanut butter, the same kind of peanut butter, and jelly, and say, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And out of those homes would come 10 different peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Even if all the ingredients are the same, the recipe is the same, the outcome will be different because each person is going to choose their own ratio of peanut butter and jelly, how the bread is sliced, do we take the edges off, an untold number of variations that will make each of them look different, taste different, feel different. And one of those will resonate with each of us more than another. And I'll give more context to why I came up with this one when we get to the news. It does, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches does relate to the news stories. But sometimes people talk to me and they're like, well, again, it's kind of that like our company is different, or, if everyone does it the way that you're teaching us to do it, won't everyone come with the same output? And that just hit me like, no, it's impossible. It is absolutely impossible for the same recipe in terms of marketing recipe and approach will not result in the same message out to the consumer. Locations are different, company cultures are different, product is different, included features are different, vendors are different. All those things are different. And it's kind of like, we're really excited to use AI like ChatGPT that makes the homogeneous middle result. But then we kind of bristle at the idea of approaching digital marketing in a particular way because we're different. I think that's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
Coming out
The math doesn't math there,
Yeah.
like it's just like your kids, all of your kids are different, same mom and dad. They all have their own little special things about them.
Mm-hmm.
And they look different. It's just going to produce something different each time.
I also think it's interesting, like all this, and we're going to get to this in the news too, but everybody's talking about all these new AI tools. We were already using a ton of AI tools that people just didn't realize were AI. What happened was that when ChatGPT came out and people started playing with it, it's like that helped them understand and the connections to be made of what AI is and more what it can do. And so now all these things are coming out. It's not like these things were not already being developed or talked about or used in different ways, or Google. It's not like Google had never heard of AI until ChatGPT came out and they were like, oh, we have to come up with some things. So what it did is it kind of introduced the masses to start understanding what it was and what it did. And so now it's big news, even though it's been there. That just kind of turned on the light for a lot of people, I feel like.
In fact, PCBC 2017 or 18, I did a talk with Jeff Turner for an hour and a half just about AI and its impacts. And it was about generative AI back then and computer vision and all the things. And I just think it's funny again, computer vision AI still has a difficult time delineating between cockapoos and fried chicken.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that. That's funny. Yep.
So it'll change everything, but it's still going to be a while till we get there. The other quick story time, because you can go and listen to it, is I did a Twitter Spaces. The recording is on my Twitter profile. It's about an hour long. I had a discussion with some people from the existing home industry who either run MLS systems around the country or are vendors or partners with MLSs. And these people from the MLS world were just asking lots of questions like, why do builders do this? And it was all spurred by an article in Inman that was talking about Ben Caballero, I think is how you say his name, who runs Homes USA, which is like a way for home builders to get their homes on the MLS, rent a broker. We used to affectionately call that service, pay a flat fee or no fee and a percentage of the sales price in order to get your homes in the MLS. And it was super interesting because their perspective was that the MLS is, of course, critical. And how would realtors who have all the buyers, in their words, why wouldn't builders want to make sure that everything was in front of them all the time using that service? And I was trying to explain to them that builders have gone and are trying to go even further direct to consumer, where we just want to market directly to our customer, sell directly to our customer, because we believe it's a better experience at a lower cost, all those things. And they were like, yeah, I mean, maybe. And one of the things I was explaining to them is, Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com and New Home Source, they all like 7-8 years ago would say we have our own niche audience of highly, like, these are the people you want to reach. And the answer is absolutely yes, that's true. But now through Meta and Google, we have all the same tools to reach, like, to say that in Google's language, an in-market audience for someone who's shopping for a house. How do they know that they should be in that in-market audience? Because they went on Zillow. Like, there's signals flying all around. And so I was like, there's that ability to target that audience. And on all of those sites, except for New Home Source and Livable, those homes are also on the MLS. So whenever a builder runs an ad for a house that's not on the MLS and therefore not on front page of Zillow or not, then they're like, wait, I thought if I went here, all the stuff was here. And now they're like, you just have to show a picture they've never seen before and say, this house is available for sale. And they're going to be pulled off to your site. Anyway, you can go listen to the whole discussion. It was a good time. Lots of good ideas back and forth about how to make it easier for builders on the MLS. And I just thought it's super interesting to hang out with people who are really smart and really well connected in real estate, who are just like, we don't know builders at all.
I think it's ironic that we're having this conversation given our earlier conversation, because I feel like it also shows a bit of a disconnect from their buyers, because their buyers are doing their own searches. They are trying to find their own homes, and they are making contact without them. And
I think they know that, but their answer was like, but all the serious buyers are going to have the Zillow app or the Redfin app on their phone. And that those apps are all going to lead them back to agents. It was their point. And I was like, okay, kind of true, but also, like, we can still reach those people.
I don't know if it's because I'm in the industry, but the 2 times we bought new construction homes, I mean, especially on this time, I contacted the builder directly. That's how I found the home that we're in, is by contacting the builder directly. It wasn't my realtor. I didn't even have a realtor yet at that point.
Yeah. Well, you both have worked for builders. So I'll ask you this question, and we can take out a news article. That seems to be what we do these days. Just take out news articles so we can. When you worked at your home building companies, when did you decide to put homes in the MLS or not? Was it standard practice that everything went in as soon as it started dig? Was there a certain phase? What was the impetus for getting added to the MLS?
I think ours was drywall at the time, because we didn't want it to just sit in there forever and then realtors complain about days on market and all that. So drywall,
or show up to show someone walk through a house in framing with somebody.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. We did it at one point. It was standard practice as soon as the MLS of that particular region would allow it. One wouldn't allow it until frame. Another one would take it at dirt. However, we stopped at one point altogether because it wasn't needed. And then it wasn't until Zillow implemented their change that we started listing again. And it was not without much complaining.
And that's what the interview with Rob Hahn was all about, is if you're trying to make sure that your homes show up on the primary search results of Zillow, you don't have to go through the process with your local MLS to make sure that the consumer can see you on Zillow. You can use Rob's tool for free to syndicate directly from your website. The same feed basically that you're sending to Zillow can go through his MLS and back to Zillow to give Zillow the ability to put it on the front page, so to speak, of those search results. Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to convey to them, is I don't think most builders think to themselves, I need to be on the MLS because of the MLS. They're thinking, I need to be on the MLS because of exposure on syndication platforms, and potentially I need to partner with a realtor because they are the number one realtor in this part of town and have their own network or incremental advertising. Like, I remember back in 2004, one of our strategies when we had inventory at Miranda in Columbus, well, actually, no, that's not true. Because we didn't partner with realtors at Miranda when I was there at all, ever. Like, we paid them nothing. But maybe it was in 2007 then, when I got to Pittsburgh, we were still advertising in the paper. We had our own half page or full color ad. And then the strategy was, well, let's give a listing to Coldwell Banker and a listing to Howard Hanna, because then they're also going to run ads in the paper. And now our homes will be in their ads and our ad. And it's kind of that same way now, but in a digital world or in an open house world of we don't have the staff to hold more open houses. So I think there's one of the reasons builders use agents is often for their own network and the assumption that they're going to do their own advertising and or hold their own open houses, not just to get in the MLS.
Yeah. At one point, Stylecraft, they have their own internal broker, so they could list all of their homes by themselves on the MLS. And then and that was even done at a last resort.
But you still couldn't syndicate it from your website. You still had to have this other process, right, of adding in content and
correct
pictures and
it was a nuisance. And then as a like last resort, say there was like a home that just couldn't sell, then it would be partner with a realtor and have them list it and see what they could do with it on top of what the builder is also doing.
And I used to have to use Paint or Corel Draw or something like that to cover up our driveway blocks because it had our logo on it. And we kept getting in trouble from the MLS for having branding on our photos. So I, as a little marketing coordinator in 2000 and something, would have to block out our logo. Fun times.
So many violations over the silliest things.
I know. We would get in trouble. We'd get called in.
And then trying to contact them to get them to list a property that doesn't exist yet. Like, and getting in contact. Oh gosh, there's just there was too many hoops to jump through.
So that was the other thing I described. I'm like, it's hard for builders to use the MLS. And these are people who are responsible for how the MLS works in their area. And they're like, what do you mean it's hard? Hard? Well, it's like, yes, it's either really hard or really expensive or both. It was a good time.
And time consuming.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. On to the news. Up first from Mashable.com. Right after we recorded last week's episode, Google had their I/O conference, which is like their developer conference and updates. And you might have seen the meme of their CEO saying the word AI like 34 times to make sure that their stock price went up, which it did. But basically Google's full on attack of, all right, our first demo of Bard was terrible. I forget if it either started fighting with them or just providing, I think it provided incorrect answers in their like live stage demo of the tool. Now they just said, forget it. We're all in. And in fact, there's even some, if you really want to dig in deeper, there were two different divisions of Google that were working on AI, and they have since combined the two together, which is like a big deal for those two different cultures of people. One thinking like, we're going to use, I think it was Google Fold and Google, I forget the other one, but one was like, we're going to use AI for drug research and other things. And the other is like, we're going to make sure it can play chess and Go really well. It's like, you two are now one department. There's a big huff about that, but AI for everyone. It's the Oprah moment. So the one I'm least ready for, like it needs to have is Gmail will write emails for you. So it already suggests different things and small, like short responses to emails, but now you can use their help me write feature, which will just write your whole email for you and then allow you to personalize it. I definitely need a filter to just remove all of that, or it should. Here's what I think should happen. I think Google should have it set up that it's just different color text if a human actually wrote it. Because what I want to be able to do is just go, like, at the end of the day, it's only the part that the human would choose to go back in and change that truly matters most of the time. So I don't know.
Are the humans going to go back and read what the AI just wrote for them to make sure of what it says? Because I think a lot of times they're not going to.
I think we've already
I think it's
proven
going to have a lot of nonsense in it.
I think like responsiveness will increase, but actual productive work will decrease.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to help us communicate better. I think it's just going to make more nonsense into the world.
Yeah, not until we each have our own AI system that we pay 20 or 50 bucks or $100 a month for that defends us against all this stuff. Does it really? Anyway, next up, AI-powered immersive Google Maps. So now it'll take you into a digital created model with the exact route. You can see if you're driving from one state to another, all the different, like visually take the route. It's going to roll that feature out in 50 different cities by the end of the year.
That was on
Google
Shark Tank.
What was that?
That was on Shark Tank. Like there was something on Shark Tank that like this person said that you could map out your like cross-country journey and it'll tell you where to go. What was the name of it?
Did Google buy it?
This is a good side thing. No, there's an app called Road Trippers. I think I downloaded that app. They did not get funded from this was like 3 years ago.
I found it. Oh, this one is okay. This one's slightly different. It's called Audio, and it will tell you like on the map, it'll like record back like an audiobook almost stories of the area that you're visiting. And it'll provide you this journey.
Like the thing you get at a museum that talks to you as you're going by a picture, but in this case it's
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I thought you were talking about there's another app that I use sometimes. We haven't done a car road trip in a while, but Road Trippers, where you just tell it where you're going and how long you have, and it'll suggest things that would be an appropriate detour or use of time along the way based upon how many people are in your family, what their ages are, et cetera. It's kind of a cool thing.
Will it tell me in a month that I should stop at the Oakley's house on my road trip?
Well, no, but you should. But no. Because last time she stopped over with her daughter I think was expecting to swim in the pool and she didn't, so we got to make that happen. Next up from the article, a whole bunch of Google Photos features. Take things out of the picture with Magic Eraser and Magic Editor. That's great, but I think the integration of AI with all of the different like Google Docs, Google Sheets, I think that's going to be the biggest use case. So you open up a Google Sheet and you're trying to you don't like sorry Will and other like I think Will Duderstedt is somewhat famous for on interview questions he asked what your favorite function is in Excel. It's an irrelevant question in another couple of years because you won't need to know any functions. You'll just tell it what are you trying to figure out here, and it'll do it all for you. The big one is Bard being not in a beta. You don't have to pay for it. Bard is their search functionality, or not search functionality. It's their version of ChatGPT, but being able to use it for search. And I gave each of you an assignment. I will share my own first. Julie's like, what assignment?
Me an assignment? I missed the assignment.
Oh,
no.
And see that Julie's the one who would worry about that the most of anyone.
I'm getting an F on this assignment.
Most other people on our team would be like, whatever. But Julie's like so conscientious.
No, I have to ace every assignment.
Yeah, well, you got time. So I'm going to share mine. I just said use it because it's one of those things, again, where like, oh my gosh, Google's going to change their whole approach to their business model. And how is Google going to make money? Is it still going to be a good stock or not? Is this going to completely disrupt search? So I just asked Bard, I'm looking for a new home in Dublin City Schools from the 800s with 4 bedrooms. Sure, here are some homes in Dublin City Schools that are for sale in the 800s and have 4 bedrooms. First, I didn't catch the fact that I said new home. It just assumed that I meant a new home for me. And then it just talks about like pull some random descriptions with asking prices, but doesn't give addresses, doesn't give links. And then at the end, it gives some, which it does this with everything. Like, here are some additional tips for finding a home in Dublin City Schools from the 800s with 4 bedrooms. Start your search early, be prepared to act quickly, be flexible with your location, consider buying a fixer-upper. I asked it who built these homes, and it said, haha, nice try, I can't answer that. And then I said, okay, can you provide links to the homes you already found? And it said no. So it's not, it's to me, it's just another example. And Beth's example is more useful than mine. But in terms of using Bard as a replacement for how most consumers are looking for search, it's almost like more how you use YouTube for search to me. Like, I'm not looking for a statement answer or a product. I'm looking for a process or a procedure. Like, I'm sure if I asked Bard, how do I improve the chemical balance in my pool, it would tell me, just like I might watch a YouTube video about that same topic. I don't know. So it's again, it's a good alternative for ChatGPT because it's connected to the internet. So that's the awesome part is you have to have beta access or use plugins on ChatGPT to access other data sets. Bard is wide open to the web. So if it's accessible on the web, you can give it a URL, you can ask it for information. It will get live data, which ChatGPT doesn't do out of the box. So there's some definite benefits to it. But
I
Beth,
told
you already did it. See,
I
you got
told
an A.
Bard that I didn't see an assignment for work. What should I tell my teammates? And it gave me about 6 bullet points about being proactive and not making excuses. And then it wrote me an email to send to you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. What's the subject line of the email?
Let's see if it gave me a subject line. No, it didn't give me a subject line. It just says, "Hi team, I'm writing to let you know I didn't see the assignment for the upcoming project. I'm not sure if I missed the email or if it wasn't posted in the usual place." And it goes on to say that I'm happy to do it. Anyway, I just thought it was
That's
funny.
Beth, what did you decide to do with it?
It just coached you.
Yeah.
I had a little fun with it. I asked it, what are the key takeaways from the below article that should be discussed on a podcast? And then I sent it the article about it. And so it gave me a bunch of, good key takeaways from the article, a little bit repetitive. And then it gave me questions to prompt on the podcast. So then I took those questions and I plugged it back in and I said, answer these questions. And so then it answered the questions. But again, I think the biggest takeaway of just is how incredibly repetitive it was. And then while I like the Google it button so that you can then search to find more out, the Google it actually had no substance to it. It was just Google AI. What is Google's AI called? Is it free? And like, that was the extent of the conversation we had.
Yeah.
So I felt it was interesting because I feel like the key points takeaway is incredibly helpful in both and chat.
For Olivia, our producer and marketing manager at Do You Convert, this is a great way to help with outlines of articles for folks who are coming on the show in the future. I think I'm just, hey, summarize this for use on a podcast. I think that's a great prompt. Have you all seen that? But like, everyone's going viral with these, like, here's the best prompts for X.
Yep.
There's no secret.
That's
to that.
the thing with AI. It's like, you're using AI's prompts wrong. Here's how you should do it. And then it's like this 30 tweet chain of like, how to do it. Right.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised that people struggle with what do I type in to make it do something, because everyone has someone in their family who's the best at search now. And I'm that person in my house. My wife's like, okay, I've looked for an hour. I can't find it. And then I know how to think like the search engine. And so I type it in. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that still is a thing for AI. But if AI is really good, should you need to memorize a bunch of prompts that are useful?
Ooh,
doesn't seem
that
so.
Did the chicken come before the egg? That's a loaded question there.
It's my favorite thing lately is using it to find synonyms for things instead of like the Google thesaurus or the different thesauruses, because you can keep, it just gives you more options that aren't exactly what would be in a thesaurus. And then you can keep, so that's been one of my favorite ways to use it. So it's not writing for you, but it's a super helpful tool when you're writing something and finding better words for what you're looking for.
Like Kevin said, it should be part of the recipe, not the full recipe.
Yeah, there was also another argument happening online about using AI for listing descriptions and whether that should be happening or not. And some people saying all listing descriptions are basically the same anyway. And then a whole bunch of other people being like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is your opportunity in words to be differentiated. And you're saying it's not worth my 5 minutes to make it so. Like, do you really not value your customer who's paying you tens of thousands of dollars that much that you just want to plug it in? It's just interesting back and forth. Next up, we have a brand new speaker announcement for the Online Sales and Marketing Summit. Mark Davidson from 1000 Watt. They are the premier branding company in the real estate space on the existing home. I mean, their specialty is working with brokers and agents in that world, but they've also done work with home builders, master plan communities, and the rest. And Mark is the creative genius. He is the Carla of that organization. So he's going to come and do a branding workshop with the marketing half of the crowd. Don't worry, online salespeople, we're not going to ask you to participate in the branding workshop. But that's where I off the cuff, we were just talking for 5 minutes, and I said, this hit me about the food thing. And he was like, oh my gosh, like I've actually opened up restaurants and a couple times before, and I'm a foodie, and everywhere I go, he's like, you're exactly right. And one of the things in branding is you're trying to find the ingredient that no one else can use. So his argument, to me was, when my builder in Pittsburgh was the official home builder of the Steelers, he's like, that's not even branding. Like, as soon as you choose to stop paying that money, any other builder can walk in and become the official home builder of the Steelers. You're buying awareness at a really expensive price, $300,000 a year, but that's not really your brand. He's like, you can argue that it's local, but it's not differentiation at all. And this is just a little insight into how he thinks. He's like, branding really is discipline. It's saying, I am not going to do these things. I'm going to exclude these behaviors. These are the colors. It's not picking the color you're going to use. It's all the colors you're not going to use.
Yeah.
And I recorded a guest episode with Michelle Sims Ryder, who that might even be out before you hear this, but one of his arguments is that humans have a complete ability to change at any moment's notice. And so that's why the idea of a personal brand, he's like, no, that's just called being a human. Like, it is you. If you create a quote unquote personal brand for yourself, it just narrows the definition of what you are. And then that drives people nuts. They're like, I feel like I'm a caricature of myself. He's like, yeah, because you're telling yourself all these things you can't do because it's against your personal brand. And that's idiotic. It's like, now companies, on the other hand, they can choose not to do things and have a rule set. But here's the other funny thing. He's also a big research guy, and he knows about home building. But so he sent me an email. He's like, hey, I've almost got this talk ready to go, but I just have a quick concern. Like, how important is brand in your space? Because it seems like location and price and everything else. He's like, in my world, in general real estate, it's the thing. He goes, in home building, it seems like it's like the second or third thing. It might be differentiation, and I was like, oh, well, you're coming at this from the same place I've come at, which is, brand is awesome as long as you offer a home in the school district I want to live in at a price I can afford. I just thought that was, and so I said my thoughts, but he's going to have his own thoughts, and it's going to be a great conversation. So
if he has a Q&A, I already have questions for him. Because
yes, well, you know what, you can lead that Q&A.
I love their e-newsletter that they send out, and I'm so curious about their process for writing. Is that a one-person creative endeavor, or if it's multiple, how does it not suck all the voice out of it? So I have lots of questions about that.
Yeah, they have a great newsletter.
I'm excited for that, because I think like branding is important, but I think like marketers, where they oftentimes are failing, is that they don't understand their own brand or who their brand voice is, and they don't know how to relay that to their customer. And it's really interesting because, like, as marketers, we should be protective of, we're the ones protecting that brand. We're the ones that should be telling sales, no, don't do that. Or don't build a flyer on your own. Like, let me do that, or send things through me, because we need to protect it.
Here's the thing where then I think a lot of people are missing. And again, a lot of stuff that I ended up doing was dumb luck to an extent. But after the first 2 or 3 years I was at Heartland, they said, hey, Kevin, every time we hire a new employee in any department, we need you to give all these new hires, whenever they come in, a 15 to 30 minute talk and collateral material to explain what our brand is and why that's important. And a lot of times marketing is doing that work, Beth, but then we hire 3 people and just expect them to know it. And what they probably only know is what they've interfaced at the front lines. They don't understand all of the work and psychology and what's gone into it to get to what you see on the front lines. Hey, like Simon said, start with why.
Yeah. But it's also a challenge for companies, because I worked at Ida Homes and they were amazing and people never left. So it's hard for very tenured people too, because the brand needs to evolve and change. And it still is what it was 10, 20 years ago to certain people. So that's hard too, is pulling them along.
Yeah.
So it's just a
Yeah.
lot
And
of
I
parts
think
to it.
like, it's not just that one conversation, right? It's not just that one 15-minute conversation when they're onboarding. It's a continued conversation that marketers should be responsible for within their organization, of being like, no, guys, remember, we can't do that. And this is why. And like, we can't say those things. And this is why. And you can't just go make your own flyer. And this is why, you know?
Yeah. And back to food, there's this very famous example of, there's a celebrity chef restaurateur here in Columbus, Cameron Mitchell. And he's famous. They use the symbol of a milkshake because he went to a fancy restaurant with his son, asked him if they could make him a milkshake for dessert. They said, no, we can't. He's like, I don't understand. You've got milk back there. Yes. You've got ice cream. Yes. Can you put those two things in a blender? Yes. Okay. Can you make me a milkshake? Yeah, I guess we can. And so that was his symbol of like, listen to the customer, do the right thing. But he's at a particular restaurant where their brand is premier experience in customization and personalization. Then my son is my 10-year-old son is watching an animated video on YouTube of some guy, is like, his first job was at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. And his worst customer experience was a lady walking up and saying, can you make me cheese fries? And he said, let me check, asked his manager. The manager said no. And he was like, sorry, ma'am, I can't make you cheese fries. And she's like, but you've got cheese and you've got fries and you can just put it in a cup and make me cheese fries. And he's like, that's not like, I don't think in that sense it's wrong for Five Guys to say no, because that's not what they're like, you're paying, well, in their case, way too much for a hamburger still, but you're not paying the same amount you would pay for a steak at Ruth's Chris or Morton's or wherever. So like the answer can be different and be okay depending on the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like people have difficulty understanding why the answer is no sometimes, but you know, going back to the recipe analogy, if you put sugar instead of salt or salt instead of sugar, it ruins the whole recipe. So sometimes you need to follow it to a T. And then the same thing of like, do we customize our homes? No, we don't. You can't move that door. You can't flip it the other direction. Yeah, you can't use that color. You can't say that phrase for the same reason why we don't move the door.
All right. One more article, then favorites. Let's see. Which one do we want to, let's do this one. So I'll just read the headline and we'll leave the link in the show notes. From builderonline.com, builder confidence climbs due to lack of existing inventory. Despite supply chain disruptions, continuing tightening credit conditions for loans, builder confidence still rises in May, according to the NHB, because no one's selling their existing house. File that under, we're all experiencing that. Builders are thankful. We add that to our prayers every night. Please let all of the people stay in their homes and not listed for sale. But from futurism.com, a newspaper apologizes for accidentally running a deranged AI-generated article from a fake AI-generated journalist.
Yeah.
The first of thousands like this yet to come. And this already, by the way, has happened over the years with scientific journals. There's one that made it was published in several scientific journals. It was talking about how dogs were being overly aggressive on playgrounds. And it was a theory that certain dogs had too much maleness in them, right, as a cause. It was just like a totally made up. So it happens. It's not, again, that we can just blame AI for everything. But this particular article was about Irish women's obsession with fake tan products is problematic.
Yeah. There was Julie, a person behind this AI too, that generated this article and generated this fake journalist based off of stereotypes, which I think is why everyone was enraged. But before I knew about the article context itself and the fake journalist and knew about that, when I first saw it, I kind of giggled a little bit because it reminded me of, there's a military blog, if you will, called like the Duffel blog. And it's all these fake articles that people have generated over the years that are like teeter on like could be true but aren't, and are more of like a satire for the military life, and it's incredibly entertaining, but everyone knows it's fake. Like if you go to here, you know it's fake. And this was fake,
But if you
want
to have fun, to your point, Beth, just send any grandparent in your life a link straight to an Onion article
yeah,
and watch their response as they read it.
Yeah.
But Julie, how does this happen? Is this not that you've worked in magazine publications, but my theory is that everyone has a deadline and they're so hungry for content to post that, and this is also, by the way, opportunity for builders. If you understand this, if you package content and provide it to media outlets and make it easy.
Yes.
Like,
I worked for a small town newspaper, and that's definitely
you did?
the case.
Well,
yes, I did. I worked for the Elk Cityan in Elk City, Oklahoma. We lived above the barbershop. It was next door. I walked through the barbershop and into the Elk Cityan and interviewed, like the superintendent of the high school and that kind of thing. So yes, it was like a 21-year-old like me running around town trying to find enough stories to fill it up while they sold ads. So yes, that's a lot of it. Also, this was an opinion piece, so I'm sure they just like read it real fast and sent it off into the abyss. It wasn't somebody that they thought was on staff or something. It was a fake person sending it in for an opinion piece, and they probably didn't have one then. But yeah, and the only reason on this particular article they figured out it was fake is because the person then went to Twitter to start telling. So how many of these things are out here?
A lot
that we don't even know. It's like the trolls just have more tools to troll into the real world and not just keep it,
well,
limited to Twitter.
It's why I'm a little jaded, because I've been in the speaker ready room at the Builders Show before, where people are putting together a session they're about to deliver in 10 minutes. And I've heard statements like, I don't know, just put in a stat. And you're like, you can't do that. But again, how do you verify the stat? You just take a picture, you assume it's true, you add it down to your notes, and then whew. So I think the win on all of this is that hopefully it makes you be a little bit more in a healthy way skeptical of everything that you're reading and consuming, because to your point, you should have been all along.
Yep. Facts.
All right, favorites. We'll go in but Beth, you want to start on favorites?
The Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles. I grew up going to Camden Yards Classic, one of the best baseball stadiums in the country, obviously. All the time when I was little, because my dad worked for Baltimore City, so we would just get tickets sometimes, and I loved it. It was like one of my favorite things to do when I was little. And I went sporadically throughout college and things like that on like $5 Fridays and whatnot. But we've obviously lived away from Maryland for a long time, minus the 1 year that we were just there. But my husband has gotten super into baseball this year, like freakishly into baseball. And
it's like his delayed pandemic obsession.
Yeah, basically. And we all have it's consumed all of us. Like we watch every game. We have so much fun. Cullen asks all the time, is Adley playing today? Like,
you know what
he
the
loves
best thing
Adley.
about baseball is?
What? The food?
You can take a nap and wake up and still see the end.
So see, I didn't know this, but did you know it got better?
No. Don't they have a clock or something? A pitch clock?
Yeah. They have a pitch clock. So the game moves at a faster pace now. So, and the Orioles are super entertaining. They implemented this whole thing where if you get a double, then they do the sprinklers.
Is that the weird guy with the green guy? Who's the Orioles mascot?
No, that's the Phillies.
Oh, the Philly. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Either.
I don't know anything about baseball. My boys just discovered baseball existed last week. I kid you not. The last 8th grade baseball game of the year. Some of my daughter's friends at school were playing, and so I dragged my youngest to it. He didn't want to go. And then ever since he's been back, he and his brother are playing baseball out in the yard because it's cool now, but they know nothing about the sport.
That's funny. I think it's the Phillies, at least. I'm like going back and I'm like, someone's going to fact check me in the comments and be like, it's not the Phillies.
I think you're right. But I think you're right.
It sounds right. Yeah. I don't know, but when
we lived in Pittsburgh, we used to go to the games all the time. My girls know about baseball.
It's fun. 10 out of 10 recommend. Watch the Orioles though, because they're entertaining.
Is the season almost done?
Oh, no,
Is the season just starting?
I mean, pretty much. It starts in April, if I'm not mistaken, and so
Okay.
we're only
Yeah,
like
I
a
always
month
remember as a
in.
kid, the season was always ending or beginning when school started and ended. It was like
It's really long. There's a lot of games, but it's still like it's really fun. And there's nothing. So we took the kids to the Royals game that when the Orioles were in town, and the kids had so much fun. So I mean, I don't know. It's a nice little activity to do with your kids in the summer.
This
Recommend.
is why
we're
Mike
bringing America's
Lyon.
pastime back.
This is why Mike
Amen.
Lyon rolls his eyes so much when we're doing like fantasy football, and all the marketing people are like, "Wait, what? How?
Sports? Do they kick it or throw it?
The sales side kind of has us beat in that side. Sorry, guys, we're not representing well.
Is that what happens? Marketers come from the people who aren't like super into sports as kids?
Not me.
Could be.
Take me out of that equation, but perhaps.
You were sporty as a kid?
I was not sporty. There is no athletic prowess here present.
No, me neither.
But my family was athletic, and we like watched sports growing up. And then like I get into it. I have like seasons of sports, like, and there's certain teams that I just love no matter what, like the Orioles and the Capitals. I remember sitting around a conference table in Texas telling everyone the Caps just won the Stanley Cup, and they all looked at me like, what is the Stanley Cup? And I was like, oh, okay, wrong audience. Never mind.
All right, Julie, what do you got?
So this is a shout out to Andrew, the ad doctor, because he knows I love jujitsu and I talk about it all the time. And now he has another person at his gym or something who does jujitsu. So now Instagram is showing him jujitsu, accounts. And so just today, before the podcast, he sent me Paul Hunter 7 or Wrigley the Bulldog, DAWG. And basically, it's this man who puts a jujitsu gi jacket and a belt on his dog and shows people jujitsu moves with their dog. So I know you all probably will not appreciate this as much as me, but
I will
say shout out to Andrew for keeping me in mind and sending me these things when you come across them, because it made my day.
That's amazing. I love people that come up with this stuff. Like,
yeah. And so the dog has the guy has 34,000 Instagram followers now, and the dog has 11,000 Instagram followers. So it's making the rounds.
And it's a dog, not many dogs.
No, just one dog.
I'm just closing the loop from your first piece.
Oh yes. That's right.
My favorite is, I think, Google's approach to GA4's rollout. Hear me out. There's a lot of things that are wrong and bad and shady about what's happening, but man, can they get people's attention, right? You just put in a
or heart rate
clock.
Up.
Like, I think if you're not, as a marketer, learning about how to do change with your sales team when you roll out something, you need a doomsday clock. That's it. If the world's going to end in, hold on, I'll pull up Google again here, and it'll tell me the live countdown. 43 days, 10 hours, 13 minutes, and 44 seconds.
Yeah, it's intense.
Until the world ends. If you don't know how to get people's attention, just check out what Google's doing with GA4. You spam people with new phone calls every hour, and you put in a doomsday clock.
Yeah, it's working. People are panicking.
All right, that'll do it for this week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.